Hello, welcome to Distraction, episode 6. This week I'm going to be talking about American sitcoms. If that's something you think you'll be into, please stick around. Normally, thank you for coming back if you've seen any previous episodes, and if you've been liking, or just messaging me saying you've watched them, thank you very much. It does make me very happy. As much as I think this is my little dumb hobby, it warms my heart when all my friends watch and support, so thank you. I'm going a bit sporty look today. I've just come in off my walk. And I thought I may as well do this before I have my shower, so there's some knowledge you might not have wanted. But thank you for coming back. Normally, if you've seen any of the other episodes, I try to do a 3-part podcast sort of thing. So I do funny stories from the week, then I do some recommendations of things I've watched during the week, and then I try and do a big topic where I talk more broadly about something, and in future weeks when we can actually leave, it's more likely to be with a guest. But see, this week I haven't done much apart from sit and watch TV, and one of the main reasons I wanted to start the podcast was when I watch new things, a bit like you'll have seen like other film podcasts do, where they'll watch movies every week at the cinema, what's new out that week, and they'll talk about that. But unfortunately, nothing new's really coming out, and if it is, if you've been on Amazon Prime recently, they've had a few home movies that they've added that have come straight to home instead of going to cinema, but they're all like £16-17 to rent, which completely fair enough. Like, if you know anything about like how much it costs to make a film, which most people do, it's hundreds of millions of pounds, and they would lose that money because they're not getting any ticket prices at cinemas, where obviously they make all the money back. But like I understand why, to make any money back, they have to charge so much money. But on the other hand, I'm not going to pay £17 to watch Sonic, especially if it's just me in my room. I understand if you've got kids and you're a family, and £20 to watch a film is much cheaper than it would have been to go to the cinema. But like, for just most people, I feel like sat at home by themselves, that's not going to happen. But obviously I don't want to discourage it as well on that vein of things, because that might be the only way that we're going to get new movies, especially in the future. So I don't want to be like, oh, this is shit, people shouldn't do that, because that is going to be the only way. Sorry about that noise, I'm just adjusting the microphone. That is going to be the only way to get them. But so the point I was trying to make there was, this week I didn't really watch enough to warrant a podcast. But then I got thinking, and I thought, well, no, not really, because I've sat and watched season upon season of American sitcoms. And it's like, obviously most people are saying that because of lockdowns, you're not going to be... I'm not really trying, because my issue in Newcastle is I rarely get to sit and watch like a 3-hour film, because obviously I live in a shared house, and I like living at the watching in the living room, and I don't mind when people come in and start chatting or watch with me. I actually quite like it, but it does sort of take you out of it. And then also, not like every night I have 3 hours to just sit and watch a film with work or people doing stuff. And I've always been like, that's why I don't watch as many as the longer, like, more artsy films. But now I've got all that time, I am sort of like, I'm just not in the mood for them. I'm in the mood for things that are easy to watch, easy to consume, things that I've watched before, and are just like there for you to make me feel just a little bit more at home, because everything outside is obviously a massive panic attack just waiting to happen. Sorry. But so I was like, I'm not going to make a podcast this week. But then I thought, no, I've watched so many American sitcoms, watched them so many times, so why not? I think I'm going to title this something like Ranking American Sitcoms. Probably not going to do a formal ranking, but I'm definitely going to talk about them all, because I've got a lot... I'll try and explain what I'm thinking. One of the reasons I did start this podcast is because people are like, there's 1,000 white men making podcasts about films and things like that. And the reason I made it is because I think about the films and TV shows that I watch so much. It's nice to have an outlet, and every week I've been doing this. When I've watched a film and then talked about on this, well, this is an amazing film like Black Swan, which I've been thinking about ever since I saw it. It's like, then it leaves my head, and then it gives me time that I can move on, basically. I can go and watch other stuff and stop thinking about it, because I'm not like, oh, I want to talk to someone about that, oh, I've got this idea. Getting it all out on here is like really helpful, because it just feels like sort of productive. Like, you've watched a film, you've talked about it. If you have a guest on, you've talked about it with them, seeing what they've thought. So that's like the reason I wanted to start this. And then I've been going on 4 minutes already, just nattering, and that's sort of what I wanted this episode to be more like, because I've realised in previous weeks that they have been very like bum bum bum, like I recommend this, here's this, big story of the week, this story, and it is very segmented, but obviously, and this sounds really really big headed, I don't mean it to, but like everything in the art, everything always starts regimented and structured. If you look at any movies, TV shows, paintings, not saying that this is art, because it's definitely not, but like, well, it is its own form of art, I'm just saying. But like, everything starts more structured and then finds its own path, becomes a bit more like opposite of linear. I don't know, I'm not that clever. Maybe it is linear. I don't know. I'm really having a brain fart. But like, so I really want these episodes to be on. You know, like I was like watching even just some interviews this week of people on the radio. It was Jake Gyllenhaal, if anyone wanted to know, and just the way that he was just speaking on the radio, and just flowing in the conversation, the random questions. But it wasn't like bang bang bang. Because then I watched another. Because then it can go the other way, because I watched another podcast this week where they talked about a topic, I think, for too long, and no one really cut in to be like, let's move on to this, or like, that's interesting, but what about this? So I don't want to be that, which is why I've always been, if you go back and listen to the early days of the Ben and Barney show, like, I'm always very on the ball when Barney would trail off with something, and I was be like, bang, bang, like, we're going to talk about this now. So that's why I wanted this week to be a bit more just flowing, so I'm doing just the whole thing, because I've also got, I had no funny story from the week, nothing's happened. And the only recommendations that I've got, got this massive old iPad that has about 40% of battery, but that'll last about 6 minutes. So the only things I've sort of got to recommend this week is, North Shore Coffee Co. on Instagram are doing, they're a local brewing company up in Newcastle, and they're partnering with the NHS, and they're giving free tea and coffee to all NHS workers in Newcastle. If you just search them up on Instagram, North Coffee Co, I'll also put it in the description. Just give any money to them. That'd be pretty cool. I donated earlier this week because as everyone's like clapping, I understand it's good for morale and like that wartime spirit sort of thing. I do get why people are like you should clap, and I've been clapping. I've been stood on my doorstep with a pot and pan because I also just like I'm not that into it. But I feel I've been waiting for something to come around so I can justify not doing that. And this is what I sort of feel like you're still giving and probably making more of a difference to a doctor coming off a break instead of going, oh, I can hear them clapping tonight, that's helpful. But if you give them a warm cup of coffee, I think that would help them more. I feel like if I was a doctor, that would help me more. So if you can, which most of my friends who watch this, you can afford to. So if you think that's something cool, give a few quid to that. That's North Shore Coffee Co. Then this Saturday, there's a Ricky Gervais and Russell Brand podcast coming out on YouTube. Might not be into that, but that's just coming out. I can't really speak about it because I haven't seen it yet, but I was quite excited when he put up his little spoiler today. And then the one recommendation I did have, I was like, you know what, I haven't shouted out a YouTube channel yet. So the YouTube channel I'm shouting out is Sub to Will NE. It's Will NE's second channel, but it's where he does most of his... where he watches, what's it called? He watches airline videos and he watches, like, Crime Watch. Not actually Crime Watch, but that sort of esque videos. And he watches them and he talks about them and they're really, really funny. And he does all that on his second channel. It's called S2W, Sub to Willeney. So, actually check it out. It's so, so good. But, the thing I was going to talk about this week is American sitcoms. And I have got... I don't know, like 15 sitcoms that I've watched. And the thing is, I know a lot of people... I'm just going to go straight into it. So the sitcoms I'm going to talk about today that I've seen, these are like the big ones to me. I know there's so many others. One of the things I wanted to say up top is, these are just the successful ones. And I know how many sitcoms there are, because I was sort of brought up half un-American because of Friends, which is like the big one. But then... a lot of the time on British sitcoms, and I have so many DVDs of just 1 to 2 season British sitcoms. I can't even name them for you because I can't remember, but I watched so many with like Lee Evans in, and just like classic British comedians that only went for 1 or 2 seasons. So these are like obviously the random pair. I haven't seen that many American like 1 or 2 season sitcoms. Maybe Joey, spin off of Friends, if anyone remembers that. I don't know if America I assume they did have like other little sitcoms that went on TV that didn't really go anywhere else. I'm sure there's a kid in America who's like, "Oh, I have so many DVDs of this." Um, but I've got these are the American sitcoms that I'm going to talk about. Not British because that could be a whole other episode. But it's Friends, That 70s Show, Scrubs, Big Bang Theory, The Office, Modern Family, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Community. And then the two animated ones are Rick and Morty and Simpsons. Now, I wasn't really going to talk about Rick and Morty and Simpsons because technically they are still classified as an American sitcom, but I just wouldn't put them in the same vein as like the other ones I'm going to talk about. So I don't know, I just didn't feel like I've sort of wrote a few notes for all the others, but I haven't wrote anything down for those two. Like Simpsons, absolutely love it. Been watching it since I can remember. Every day on Channel 4, it used to come on at 6 p.m, didn't it? You'd be eating your meal, you'd get home from school, and that's what you'd wait for, that half an hour episode before Hollyoaks came on after it, because you want to fucking kill yourself because Hollyoaks. And like the reason I got Disney Plus because I had all 30 seasons of had all 30 seasons of Simpsons on, which is probably the longest American sitcom I've actually got on my list, which I didn't actually think about till now. But yeah, absolutely love it. I'm just not really going to talk about it. Rick and Morty as well. As much as I hate the fans, which I think a few people in Newcastle, if you know me, I've been talking about. Well, the reason I don't like Rick and Morty as much is because I hate the fan base and all, just everything that surrounds that. But I do actually really like the TV show, and I do find it really funny. But again, I'm not going to talk about it because I wasn't really going to go on to anything really animation. But the ones I am going to talk about. So there's a big. I know lots of people. The thing I'll start with is lots of my friends, as in lots. I can think of one in particular, but I won't name and shame him. But you'll know him because you're friends with me. He very strongly is against American sitcoms. He's barely seen any episodes of anything apart from. Oh no, I'm lying. Because he has seen like Parks and Rec, Always Sunny, The Office. Like he has seen those. Which he would probably. I think he veils Always Sunny, the best American sitcom, then maybe Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I'll get into in a bit. But like, I know a lot of people are against American sitcom versus the British, because there's so many really good British programs, and I'm still not sure which ones I prefer. The way that I would deem it is because I've got a lot of like words and theories that I'm putting these in, so I always want to try and give you my explanation of what it means, because it might not be the right explanation of what the word means, but just so we're on the same page, what I am thinking it means, therefore you will understand as I'm talking through. So I'm saying that like British comedy is more sarcastic, maybe more of the time. When you look back at TV shows such as the IT Crowd, they very much play on jokes of the time in the early 2000s, late 2000s. So like it is very dry and probably a bit more physical comedy, a bit more Mr. Bean. Obviously not to that level in lots, but they do have a lot of slapstick humour. Whereas American comedy, I think, is much more in your face. It really wants to tell you the joke. Every episode has a meaning for the family, a meaning for the soul. It sets up big jokes in the episode and pays them off later, which I'm sure both ideas of British and American crossover, but I'd say American comedy is more in your face, more obvious. Yeah, if that makes sense. Like very much if you just look at The Office, like the jokes you make against Dwight, or if you're looking on Friends, it's like, look, Joey's wearing loads of clothes. That's really funny, and it is funny, and I really enjoy that episode. But it is very much like bang, like in your face. Whereas I don't know. I'm trying to think. Maybe British ones are even a bit more offensive. No, because you've got Always Sunny on the list. Doesn't matter about that. But then, so that's the way I distinguish British and American comedy. Which might not mean anything to anyone, but it means anything to me. But just so we understand for the context of this, so as someone who really enjoyed British comedy, the one thing that got me into America is Friends. And Friends is the one that everyone's always like, I've seen it 30 times. But genuinely, like, I have seen it 30 times. Like, when I was a kid, I used to have a bunk bed and a little TV. At the top must have been like a 9-inch screen. It was tiny. I used to have the box of DVDs at the end of my bed. I used to sleep and like my feet would be like hitting the box. And I watched those DVDs endlessly. Like, even I used to have a trampoline in the back garden. One birthday, I got a portable DVD player, and I used to put the Friends on that portable DVD player and bounce and just listen to the episodes because I'd seen them so many times. It's just off by heart. So I haven't seen Friends probably in about a year and a half. I think Foundation Year was the last time I watched it end to end. But before then, I probably watched it end to end 3 times a year. So that's the one I'm most comfortable with, and that ran from 1994 to 2004. There was 10 seasons, if anyone didn't know. It was made by David Crane, Marta Kaufman, and Kevin S. Bright, which is funny because even though they appear at the end of every single episode, I still had to read off there to get them, where some of them so ingrained in you, just the way they say the name. But so for me, Friends is the thing is with Friends. Lots of the other ones I can pick apart very much which seasons are good, which seasons are bad. But with Friends, because I was watching it from such a young age, without any form of what's the word? Without any form of me trying to attack what it's trying to do. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, because I wasn't trying to critique it at all. I think of Friends as one big linear narrative. Very much every season is golden. No seasons are offensive. No seasons, if I'm ever watching it, I'm like, right, I'm going to leave that one out. And even going back and watching it, I still think that's the case. Like, all the jokes still land for me. Lots of them land even more because I didn't understand them when I was a kid. But, so I think Friends is the only one on this list. Because most sitcoms in America, you do find, have quite a shit ending. And I don't know why that is. There's lots of reasons which we'll talk through. But Friends, for me, didn't. Like, every time I watch the last episode of Friends, I still cry. So for me, that's the benchmark I'm setting for, it's not my favourite sitcom, because I'm going to go through which my favourite is, but it's definitely just there. Like, that's the most linear. This is what an American sitcom should be. There's 10 seasons of it. All seasons are fairly good. Other ones are better than others, and it has a fantastic ending. They brought it all to a close. And I'm done with it. We've talked about reunions and things like that. I'm fine. I'm happy with those 10 seasons. I get a lot of joy out of them when I watch them again and again. Don't need anything else. But, so, going chronologically, that 70s show, that came out in 1998 and ran to 2006, which is weird, because I didn't know that when I watched it, and it does feel like it actually came out in the 70s or 80s, and it's really confusing. Maybe it's just me. But I started watching this. See, so, Friends would have been fucking, 2007 I started watching it, 2006 maybe. Whenever it was you could get the whole box set. So if it's finished in 2004 or no, a few years after, 2006, 2007 I probably started watching it. Unless that's really early, I'm not sure. But it was ages ago, that's the point I'm making. Whereas that 70s show would have been my friend Aisling, she introduced me to it. I think it was either foundation or first year, but I think it was foundation year. And I'd never seen it before, and it was like she watches Friends as well, so she's really into all of this as well. So I trusted her recommendation of being like, that 70s show's really, really good. I don't know why I'd never seen it. It's one of the shows where you see loads of memes online, and then when you watch it, like, oh, that's that part, that's that part. But yeah, absolutely fucking fantastic show. That was created by Terry Turner. He also created Wayne's World, or wrote Wayne's World and Third Rock from the Sun. I haven't seen those, but that 70s show is absolutely fantastic. That is, oh, I forgot to say, so Friends had 236 episodes, which is the second most. That was in 10 seasons, and 70 Show had 8 seasons, but still 200 episodes, which is pretty class. I don't know if these are estimated or exact, but to finish on 200 episodes, I think that's absolutely cool as fuck. And yeah, so this one is again, has the sort of same format as Friends. Does it have a laugh track? Ooh. That's an interesting question. That 70 Show must have a laugh track, yeah. See, for Friends, that's another way we can separate them as laugh track and no laugh track. But that 70 Show I've seen twice fully. Like I said, I think she told me about it in foundation year, so I watched it fully then. And then at the beginning of second year, last summer, I went through it, almost probably a year ago. I sat and went through it all summer as well. It was really, really good. Really, really loved it. So it's new enough that it's sort of the same as Friends. You have the core group of characters, and it's them going to school in the basement, and they go on adventures. So you can tell which of these probably have more of a budget, especially as you get into the later seasons. But obviously, the point of most of these are, is it the point of a sitcom? Am I just defining a sitcom by accident? Is that they're all set in very few locations, and then it's the mischievous adventures that all the characters have together. So Friends and That 70 Show are very, very similar, where they have core locations, whether it's the coffee house and apartments or the basement and school. But obviously then they go for adventures everywhere else. Um, and I think they're so, so funny. Like, if I'd watched it when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have got it. I really didn't know that much about sex and drugs when I was younger, so I probably wouldn't have got most of the jokes. But That 70 Show for me is definitely on par with Friends. Even though I've been watching Friends for years and years, That 70 Show is fantastic, apart from the fact it does have a shit last season. And that is because the sister died. That's not the reason, but the sister got swapped out because I think she had a drug overdose. She battled with drugs for the whole time, but she was a really, really good character. And obviously, it wasn't their fault or her fault. She died and had to replace her, so that was a shame. But then the main guy, Eric, he either had another show to go to or was just like, no, like I don't think this. I think this has run its course. So in season 8, did I say season 9? In season 8, he decided to go to college. But I mean, Eric's my least favourite character anyway. Is that a hot take? If anyone's seen That 70 Show, he's like the main character. It's set in his house, and they're his friends. But as with lots of TV shows, you dislike the main character most. And I don't know if that's meant to be the point, but I dislike Eric most. And then when he leaves, it's strange, but it's still there's just something missing in that last season. I don't know if they had new writers or new directors, but there's just something about that last season I wasn't a fan of, which is why maybe it has to go below Friends if we're ranking them, because, like I said, Friends is very much, I like it beginning to end, whereas That 70 Show, I'd be more than happy to get a season 7, and when Eric leaves, be like, sweet, I'm out of here, I don't need to watch season 9 today, like, I can happily just move on with my life. But that's That 70 Show. It would still probably I'd still probably put it above Friends, because maybe I have worn myself out of Friends, but That 70 Show, I do have a joy of watching it. I know I'm going to laugh. Like, there is lots of really funny bits in it. And especially like when the high and the circle, which is like their gimmick, and I think that's absolutely class. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, so that went until 2006. And the thing I was going to talk about is that lots of these shows have creators and writers that cross over and directors that go from one to the other. So what's number 3? Number 3, going chronologically, it started in 2001, is Scrubs. I'm going to say off the bat, Scrubs is my favourite American sitcom, which is very, very a hot take for what else is on this list, because all of them are absolutely fantastic. So Scrubs ran from 2001 to 2010. It had 9 seasons. It had only 182 episodes, which is a bit strange, because I've been watching them all fully. And Scrubs, again, I probably started watching maybe 2012-ish time. I don't know, whenever my sister got into it, and then add a year, basically, because I think she started buying the DVDs and watching it. Then I started watching the DVDs that she'd bought. And I really enjoyed it then. Then I hadn't watched it, say, from 2012 until uni, when the new podcast came out with Zach Braff and Donald. So then I was like, oh, I'll get back into this, because I remember it being really, really funny. And watching it back now, although some jokes, like you'll see with many of the early 90s, 90s sitcoms, lots of the jokes probably aren't politically correct, but they are funny. Sorry. They are really, really funny, and the storylines are fab. I think it's the most heartwarming sitcom. I think it has the most serious moments and lessons to be learnt from the episodes, which lots of American shows try to do, but this one really hits them home. It's because it's this area of a hospital. Should I be describing what these are about if people don't know? So Scrubs is... there's like a gang of 7, 2 of them are interns at the beginning, there's one doctor, one head of the hospital, a nurse and a janitor, and it's their lives within the hospital. I think this one had a bit of a bigger budget, because they did have different sets outside the hospital, like different houses, but interestingly, they were all in an abandoned hospital, and the houses, coffee shops and all things like that were built in the basement of the hospital. Little trivia fact. But, so that's Scrubs. There's like interns working their way up through the seasons through the hospital, become like residents, then fully fledged doctors having their own interns. But because of the situations they're in, they can make very deep episodes with people dying, situations around cancer, kids, anything you can think, death, mainly death, and birth. Very, very prominent and very, very good. And it's my favourite. I love the whole cast. There's no one in it I don't like. I think they're all really, really funny. Most of the jokes land. There's not many jokes that get made that I don't even chuckle at, which is strange. But saying that, which is strange, can I properly rank this? I haven't seen the last season. So my sister got season 1 to 8 on DVD. And then season 9, not to spoil any of these, is again like that 70s show where one of the characters, or if one of the characters leaves and they change location, they try to do something else. So basically at the end of season 8, you sort of feel like it's wrapped up and lovely. And I don't know if they were forced to do 9, if they always planned to do 9. I've read up on it a bit, but they moved from a hospital to a learning university. And lots of people say it's really not good, and there's a lot of fan backlash against it. I haven't seen it because so far I'm just ending season 8, but so far 1 to 8, it's my favourite ever American sitcom with the jokes, the cast, the scenarios. I think they're absolutely class. So I don't know what season 9 is going to be. I might not like season 9, but even if season 9 is absolutely crap, it's still my favourite out of the whole list. Definitely the 10 out of 10 recommend, and the podcast that they're doing at the minute to go through it. I absolutely love it. So that's Scrubs. I'm not trying to go through these in order, I'm just trying to go through them, and because there is one linear path. I keep using linear as like my fucking word of the day. But the point I was making before was because lots of the writers and directors obviously move from one to the other, and with Scrubs, it's created by Bill Lawrence. The whole thing's by Bill Lawrence. He wrote it. He's a really, really class guy, really, really clever. But the directors and writers who have worked even from season 1 on Scrubs, they talk about in the podcast, went on to write. They came from Family Guy, which is another animated show, a sitcom, and they've moved on to things like Community, which is also on the list. So lots of the directors go from show to show. Like people from Scrubs may well have worked on The Office, may well have worked on Community, even with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. What is it? It's Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, and The Office all have the same creator, like core creators and writing teams, which you can probably see as you're going through. You can see like the similarities between them. So that's why some of them are so good as well, because they have the same people behind them. But it's also you have to give it to them that they're so different, as like they're so fabulously different and good by themselves. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Office, very different shows, but they're both absolutely amazing. So you just have to give it to the creators of the shows that they aren't just a one-trick pony or something. But yeah, so next I have so what was made in 2004? The Office was made in 2005. So we'll go on to that next. The Office for me used to be my favourite until I rediscovered Scrubs. And obviously everyone should know The Office. It was made off the back of the British original written by Ricky Gervais that only lasted 2 seasons, and it went to America where it lasted 9 seasons from 2005 to 2013. It had a bit of a similar journey as some of the other sitcoms where in season 6, no spoilers, I'm sorry if this is spoiling, but in season 6, Michael leaves. That's Steve Carell leaving the project to go and do other things. And it does take a very big hit, and nothing after that can be as good as those first 6 seasons. And it's a bit like Scrubs. It's like, but those poor seasons aren't bad enough to warrant the first 6 to be ruined. The first 6 are still really, really good. The scenarios they come up with, again, this one may be on a smaller budget. I don't know if budget has anything to do with it, but they're very much in the confines of The Office. It's a bit like Community, where they very rarely leave the office to fulfill storylines, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think that's great. I could talk about The Office for hours. That was created by Michael Schur, and yeah, so was Brooklyn Nine-Nine and things like that. And Greg Daniels as well works very, very intermittently between them. And I love the fact of how much of the writing staff was in the cast as well. I think that's absolutely fucking hilarious. If you go back and actually read the credits for the episodes, so much of the writing staff is also working in acting in the episodes. Probably the most I've cried at any of these sitcoms was at The Office, as much as I still do at Friends every time, without spoiling it. In one of the events in the last season, which most people can probably guess, I do always burst into tears again because it's so, so good. That ran for 201 episodes, only one more than that 70s show. And I think they dragged it on a little bit. This is probably the only one on the maybe not the only one. This is the first one on this list that I will say I think they either dragged it out or they could have stopped sooner. Every other one, actually no, I'm lying. That 70s Show I would have cut off the last season. Scrubs you probably could have cut off the last season, and maybe this is from a pattern. I think with The Office you could have cut off the last season, maybe the one before, and that's some of the issues with some of the characters that you can bring up is that they weren't meant for 9 seasons. And it's the same as like in Scrubs. Example is there's two characters that get married in season 1 of Scrubs, and then the writer has been very, very vivid in saying that they were never meant to have any marital problems. They were never meant to be a will they won't they couple. They were the strong couple. But he said when that's meant to be last for 2 seasons and you get onto season 9, you have to throw a few curveballs in there to keep it interesting, because if not, people just don't find it interesting anymore. So that is an issue with some of these episodes that you also have to take into account. But The Office, I could have cut a few seasons off the end. But Jim is probably my favourite character. Second favourite character after Zach Braff's character in Scrubs of all time. He's so funny. What he's doing in Subgood News is fab. All the cast still seem really, really friendly now. But like I do love it. It is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely in my top 3 of American sitcoms. Should we just go through my top 3? I reckon are Scrubs, Always Sunny, Scrubs, Always Sunny, and The Office. But all the others are so close behind it. It is difficult to be like, no, they're not. There's a few I'm going to drop in here and there that I'm not really going to talk that much about. That's Parks and Rec. That was from 2009 to 2015. 125 episodes, the lowest by far. Same creators as The Office. I actually haven't even completed this one. I think I got about 4 seasons in. Apparently it gets a bit crap after that. Not really going to talk about it. It wasn't just my cup of tea. I like Chris Pratt in it. He was really, really funny. But I did just find it the gimmick had worn off from The Office to this. To me, this was too American. The way I talked about the humour at the beginning, The Office I still feel like still had that dry, sarcastic humour of the British original, then added its own flavour of Steve Carell with like his wacky jokes. But this, I don't think Parks and Rec really cut it, so it's definitely not even on my top 10 list. I really don't think it cut out American sitcom at all. Sorry, Parks and Rec fans. And then The Big Bang Theory, which is a massive meme, and loads of people say it's a terrible TV show. I've seen every episode. What is it? There's like 12 seasons of it, 11 seasons. Where are I on my list there? It started in 2007 to 2019. Had like 279 episodes. They were getting paid like £1 million an episode, the actors in it. Can't say it wasn't successful. Don't have much to say about it. Has a laugh track. Theirs, I think, has the most Americanized humour of, you just see it coming, it's very obvious. Situations are set up purely for the point of the punchline, not really for advancing the character arcs in any way. That might be a bit critical, but I do enjoy it, and I did sit and watch the final series on it on Netflix to say I've watched them all just to see what happened at the end. Maybe a bit disappointed. Not like Game of Thrones disappointed, but yeah. But yeah, not really going to talk about those two much at all. But next one I'm going to move on to is How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother was 2006 to 2014. Had about 208 episodes. Again, this is probably the most famous one of having the shite ending. This one definitely should have... I still think it should have had the same amount of seasons, which was 9 seasons, but I think the 9th season should have been very different. And I know it's the famous thing of, yeah, but they filmed the beginning back when the kids were young, so they could still have it at the end, so that they couldn't change it. But I think that was really fucking dumb, and no one would have been bothered if those kids had aged, or if they green screened it somehow de-aged. They had the technology, they could have done it, or just... I don't know how they could have done it, but they shouldn't have done what they did. And for me, it is a Game of Thrones situation where it really makes me not want to go back. It does hold a very special place in my heart because my sister loved it, so I watched it quite a fair bit. All through secondary school, I watched it religiously, like Friends. And in the final season, I had a friend in school, and we used to like text each other all the way through, and she'd watch it like at the same time as me on E4. So that for like last season, like I don't know how many episodes it was, probably like a 20 episode season for like 20 weeks. We would sit and text every single Thursday night. It was Thursdays nights, and it was probably the highlight of my week doing that. It was really, really fun. I absolutely loved doing it. Again, least favourite character is probably the main character, Ted. I could probably talk about How I Met Your Mother more, but because of that last season, I just don't want to, which probably sounds really bad, but it has sort of marred it for me. And I do want to go back, but I think it's one of the few sitcoms, as much as that 70s show is obviously a 70s show, and that's the whole gimmick of the show, this is very obviously a naughty, even though it ended up in 2014, it's very much a late naughty show within every sense of the phrase. And I don't think it'll last long. Whereas lots of these, I think Friends is still getting discovered by people 20 years later. I don't think How I Met Your Mother will sustain its history much, much longer. That's a bad thing to say, but I just don't think it will, unfortunately. So the last four, I'll go on to... Oh, I missed out Always Sunny in 2005. Always Sunny, I'm not going to talk much about it because I think everyone who watches this will have seen it. Always Sunny and Community, I'll talk about them together. So they are two sitcoms in the postmodern era of American sitcom. But what I mean by that is the postmodern era of sitcoms would be a subversion of expectations of what you could see on TV. Like, can't do that. Like, Scrubs is an era of postmodern TV, of trying to push the limits of what you can put on evening national television. Some of the jokes they make and the scenarios they produce is very much of that style. So what I mean by, and I don't know if it's true, but what I mean by postmodern comedic style, they have to subvert the expectations of you expecting subversion in your TV, which is a very, very particular but slightly more common trait in new TV shows and films. And Always Sunny does that fantastically, say in episodes where they'll know doing blackface is completely against what you could have on national TV, and therefore you as a watcher wouldn't think that they could do it. So they do it, and that's a really, really bad example. But if you understand what I mean, is they have to subvert the expectations of subverting expectations to the point where, at this point, you'll think this will happen. So they have to either follow tropes really, really closely or completely subvert sitcom tropes to keep you entertained. And both Community and Always Sunny in Philadelphia do it so fucking well. Community, very, very obviously. Now, this one, I have to hold my hands up. I've only been watching it for 6 days. I've gone through 2 seasons, and I'm absolutely loving it. By Dan Harmon and fucking the Russo brothers. How did I sleep so long in it? It's so, so good. I love the whole cast. As well with Always Sunny. I've been watching this since Barney first told me about it, but it wasn't until I got to uni. And I think Harry told me about it. I started watching it in foundation year. Absolutely fucking loved it. Obviously, that's created by Rob McElderry, I don't know how to say his second name, and Charlie Day. And they just started it in uni with a couple of cameras on their campus. And the whole show is amazing. The first few seasons are absolutely hilarious. The things they do is outrageous. And it is the most postmodern comedic masterpiece you can ever dream of creating. The newer seasons I'm not going to comment on too much because I still think they're good, but they are... See, this is the problem, they're so, so clever. The newer seasons comment on like political correctness and things like that to an extent where I don't know if they are being political, but they're being so opposite to politically correct while commenting on its own political values. It is starting to become a bit like, okay, I get it. Whereas I do love, and I've always wanted a friendship group that just goes and does dumb things. And the point I love Community in Always Sunny, especially in Always Sunny, there's no doubt whether, like, this group has fights and they all hate each other and blah de blah. But the point is, when it comes to things like they want to host Dayman versus Nightman the musical, it's not, that's fucking dumb. It's, you're a twat, I want a part in it. There's never question to be, ooh, like, that's so stupid. There's question of, like, it's so stupid you think I won't have a part in this play, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. And it is leaps and bounds ahead of Community. I am enjoying it at the beginning, at the minute, especially with like Chevy Chase and Donald Glover. Again, very, very very, very postmodern. Sorry if you're listening, watching on YouTube. Sorry, my laptop's just crashed. I'll keep talking into this. It is very postmodern to the point where Abed's character as well is obviously a movie fan, and he points out lots of the scenarios to which he is doing. So, like, it is very on the nose. We know exactly what we're doing. We're subverting your TV expectations in this way. but I do find it just really, really funny. Again, it's like Always Sunny, Community, Modern Family, and Scrubs are the four where every single episode I absolutely laugh my ass off. Like, I can't help laughing so much. Um, and like, if you want to leave a like, I'll talk more about Always Sunny. I'll probably leave it until I get someone else on the podcast so I can talk about it with them, because I have a number of friends who all watch it, and who will happily sit and talk about it, and I think it is absolutely amazing. I really, really enjoy it. But the one I mentioned there that I haven't talked about as well is Modern Family. Modern Family had just finished this year in America in 2020. Started in 2009. 2009 was a fantastic year for American sitcoms. You got Community, you got Modern Family, and you got, which other one did you get? You got Community, Modern Family, and Parks and Recreation. So it probably was a really, really good year for that. And Modern Family, I also, it was the only one as diverse as Community. And like the point of both of those two shows is the diverse cast, and they really play on the tropes of each character and their heritage, or I can't remember the word. That's why I'm stalling. The word for stereotypes. They really play on the stereotypes of different characters, and put those into the storylines. They both do it really, really well, and I think Modern Family gets a bit of hate, and it is seen a bit of just an American sitcom, very stylized jokes, very in your face. And again, at the end of every episode, they do try and tell you, they do try and install a value or something like that. But I think it's absolutely fantastic. I really, really enjoy it. And I would definitely recommend it. It's very high up in like my top 5 list probably. It's absolutely fantastic. But it's like, and then it's leaps and bounds away from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, they are two completely different TV shows, but they still enthrall me in the exact same way. Like, each time you put on an episode, you always want to see what they've been doing next. But yeah, like, they just keep you entertained, and that's the only one I haven't talked about is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But for me, it is really, really funny, and for what a few of my friends, or one in particular, it's like his friends. I feel like he can sit and watch it again and again. I don't think I can. I think the earlier seasons, especially one in the middle, was very American style comedy, and I just wasn't a fan, and it was a bit in your face. As much as I do love Andy Samberg, and all of his comedic projects, and I do watch it every week. I'm still catched up on the new season on Sky. But I don't know how much I can talk about for how good it is. I think it has a much higher budget off the back of the creators of Parks and Rec and The Office, which is why they're in the police sing. Police sing? I don't know what it's called. That's just what they all sort of call it. But they do go to a lot of other places. But yeah, like, it is absolutely fantastic, but it probably wouldn't be one of my favourites purely for the fact it's not my style of comedy some of the time. And some of the, like, I don't know, I was really excited when it got bought back by NBC so they could keep creating episodes, but I don't know if it's run out and they're like creating storylines now that not are too far-fetched, because so many of like Always Sunny and Community and things like that are far-fetched, but at this point I'm just wondering whether they should stop or bring it up to a nice close where all the characters can finally like rest in peace, if that's too morbid. But yeah, that's been episode 6. Sorry you didn't get to see the video for the last part of it. I'm still looking at the laptop now, processing, so I hope you got to see even some of it. But if you didn't, I apologise for that. But I hope you liked this episode a bit more, where I just talked through everything. Didn't really rigid myself with a structure. And yeah, I hope you all come back next week. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.